We are the only identical twins in the world to have tested Dutasteride for use in hair loss prevention for as long as 5 years, with one twin taking the drug once a day and the other foregoing any substance or method to prevent thinning. What's up guys, Derek, moreplaysmoredates.com. Today we are going to be talking about two twins. One of them took Dutasteride and one of them didn't. They are both prone to hair loss genetically, and one of them did something about it to a pretty substantial extent. This is pretty much as close to a nuclear protocol as you can get with over-the-counter FDA approved drugs. Well, I guess it's not really a kitchen sink approach. Like, you don't have a growth stimulant in there, you're not microneedling, there's a bunch of stuff on top of it he could have done, but he caught it early. We have two twins. One of them caught his hair loss before it even started, and the other one did not. And the difference in outcome, despite almost identical genetic profiles, is really interesting to say the least, because everyone thinks getting into where the genetics actually come from, your mom's dad, I kind of talked about that in a video the other day, but we literally have two fucking twins here with different outcomes based on drug use or not. So it's actually a sort of different, interesting angle in terms of brothers and their what to do if you are genetically prone, or what not to do potentially, depending on your priorities and your the pros and cons for you personally. So anyways, this site is called twinshairloss.com, and it is about a twin who took Dutasteride to stop his hair loss. We are a pair of identical twins who suffer from male pattern baldness, with one noticeable difference. One twin still has most of his hair. Since my twin brother, twin A, on the left of all photos, started showing signs of baldness in 2003, he has treated his hair with a whole variety of products. Fortunately, he has managed to prevent his hair thinning that I have experienced by taking a DHT blocker known as Dutasteride. So if you don't know, Dutasteride is the most potent 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. It significantly decreases your DHT to the point that you essentially have none. Like finasteride, at most, you're going to inhibit like 70% of your systemic DHT, whereas with Dutasteride, it inhibits all the isoforms of DHT and nukes it to like literally zero, to the point where you literally have less DHT than a girl. So twin B on the right of all of the photographs didn't try anything up until January 2010 to prevent losing my hair. Not intentionally, and the results are clear to see. So basically they're giving a disclaimer here about can refer to your own doctor before using any drugs. Obviously, I would reinforce the same thing. And then here you can see, so the twin on the left, this is from 2013. So this guy's already been on Dutasteride for 3 years, trying to replicate what his twin has done already. So look at the difference here. So they're both on the exact same drug, but the twin who did it and started back in 2003 has way better hair than the twin who started later, despite them being on the same drug protocol, and this being 3 years after this guy started. Here is a picture of them in 2009. So the picture on the left of the twin, he has been on Dutasteride for 6 years at this point, and this twin on the right has not taken anything yet. So I guess this is at one of its worst points before he started Dutasteride in 2010. Here's another angle, twin on the left, full head of hair, twin on the right, severe recession, diffuse thinning, well on his way to Baldesville, unfortunately. And then 2009, a front angle, and you can see the difference here. So picture above on the left of the photos is my twin brother, twin A. The Dutasteride twin on the right is me, twin B, who tried no treatment to prevent my hair thinning for 5 years. I showed clear signs of male pattern baldness, whilst my twin brother showed very little signs. In the first photo above, you can see that twin A still has small signs of hair thinning, which shows he does actually have male pattern baldness, but he prevented it from spreading early on through his using Dutasteride. So he actually wasn't as proactive as he could have been, but it was way better than second twin who didn't do shit for like multiple years on end. So we had the same amount of hair throughout our childhood, teens, and early adulthood. However, like our father, baldness was soon knocking on the door, and I decided to let him in, whereas my twin brother kept the door shut with Dutasteride. We are the only identical twins in the world to have tested Dutasteride for use in hair loss prevention for as long as 5 years, with one twin taking the drug once a day and the other foregoing any substance or method to prevent thinning. And this is actually like a crazy fucking example if you think about it, because if you have one twin who knows he's losing hair, gets on Dutasteride early, basically prevents it from ever occurring to any degree that anyone can really notice it cosmetically, and the other one for like 5 years straight is visually watching his hair disintegrate, and his brother keeping a perfect head of hair and having no side effects according to them, it's very baffling that the second twin didn't just get on it too. So this is a crazy example in my opinion. That was an accidental trial because I didn't really think at the time that there was a viable solution out there, so we just ignored the problem. The results of my twin brother has experienced have been incredible, which is why I wanted to share this experience with everyone. As mentioned, the test was purely accidental and not deliberate. My twin brother was more concerned with his hair loss at the time than I was with mine. It took me a further 5 years to actually be concerned enough to act when my bald spot was became a lot more prevalent. I'm sure most men are like me. They wait for clear confirmation that something is happening, and then they decide to act as opposed to listening to and dealing with the problem early on. That's, you know, what I did, what a lot of people do, and what I preach to not fucking do, because otherwise you're playing catch up like twin B here. So, however, the truth is, even though I am balder than my twin brother, what? That's not a complete sentence. However, the truth is, even though I am balder than my twin brother, and that's it, no rest of the sentence. In case you fail to see the relevance in me and my brother being twins, I will explain further. We are monozygotic twins, identical twins who have virtually identical DNA. There is some possibility that we may have variations in copy number variation in a few areas, but on the whole, our makeup is the same. Therefore, we are both prone to the effects of male pattern hair loss. However, early on in the process of twin A's hair loss, he started using Dutasteride to combat his receding hairline. This is why he shows only small signs on the crown of his head and none at the front. My hair receding, on the other hand, progressed at a normal rate. All other factors in our life remain the same. We both did sports regularly, shared similar diets, and grew up in the same environment. So this sort of like shits on the whole environmental, epigenetic, your diet just sucks, your microbiome's trash, you know, all these things that all the, you know, biohackers want to get into. Dave Asprey's of the world want to talk about how, oh, you know, you just didn't use your fucking red light on your fucking ball sack or something. It's like, at the end of the day, it's very hard to skirt around this argument where it is the androgens, AR activation, even if it leads to some cascade of events that indirectly cause a bunch of fucking things going on that may have interplay with other lifestyle and dietary factors. It's hard when you have two twins with like identical DNA, both showing that their lifestyles, like, I guess this is just, you know, maybe their lifestyles are wildly different and this is just self-reporting, and maybe it's not the case, and maybe one of them is, I don't know, has a bunch of fucking mold in his house and one of them doesn't, or one is doesn't get his micronutrients in, one doesn't get sun exposure in the morning, or doesn't follow his circadian rhythm, or whatever the fuck. Like, at the end of the day though, I think it's like pretty hard to argue with the DHT and androgen, you know, deriving portion of this whole shitty cascade of events. So without kind of like getting into that argument, he's basically asserting that there was no difference between them other than one used Dutasteride and one didn't use Dutasteride. So let's see, check out our photos for more evidence revealing the stark contrast in hair count between me and my twin, blah, blah, blah. So basically this is a cool website because it's actually like just a few very useful, concise sections. They basically talk about what Dutasteride does, why it was formulated, how it works. They talk about how it's different than Propecia and it inhibits all of the isoforms of DHT as opposed to just finasteride inhibits only, well, they say it only inhibits one type, which is kind of inaccurate. But anyways, at the end of the day, Dutasteride wipes out like all DHT, and presumably twin 1 or A or whatever the fuck they call it has essentially been walking around with no DHT since 2003. Or no, 2004 according to them here. I thought they said 2003. But anyways, he caught it early and he prevented further loss. But notably what he mentioned is he didn't, like, he still has like some signs of hair loss because he didn't catch it earlier than that. But now twin B or 2 or whatever, he started at a very, very, you know, subpar state. Like, he's let his hair go quite a bit before he started. So he started in 2010, I think he mentioned. And when you look at the hair loss photos, we have the 2013 comparison. We can see that 2009, this is them side by side from a front view. You can see the obvious difference. This is their top of their head here. The twin on the right is much worse off. And you can see the aggressive recession and diffuse thinning there. So basically they're documenting this this is fucking amazing, to be honest. So he starts in 2009, or I guess, what is this, 2010, January. Then in 2013, they compare and he's regained a decent amount, but it's not to the degree that the original one who got ahead of it did, even though they're on the exact same drug protocol. Twin B progress. This is him showing 2009, right before he started. This is him in 2011, which Still not as good as his brother 2 years later, 2011 versus 2009. 2016 now. So his hair is no worse than it was on day one. It's actually significantly better, but it's never going to reach the baseline of his brother because he didn't catch it early enough, unfortunately. So it hasn't gotten any worse though. The most important thing regarding my hair, for me personally in 2016, is not that I have gained any hair on my head or any additional thickness from existing hair, although I may possibly have, but just the simple fact that I haven't lost any of my hair since 2009. So he hasn't lost any ground since 2009. And in fact, if you actually look at it, it seems like when you actually look at him in 2013, like I think it'd be pretty hard to say he hasn't at least gained some ground. Like this recession in 2009, the baldness on the top in 2009 compared to in 2013, it's much better. Twin B in 2016, you can see he actually has like a much better hairline than he did in 2009 even. So obviously he still had a decent amount of recovery, but it's never going to be as good as the getting ahead of it, unfortunately. So that is sort of the moral of the story. Again, as usual, is don't wait until you're far gone and then try and aggressively recover, because you probably won't get back to baseline. Try and get ahead of it. If you want to wait for the first signs of it, do that. You can do that via checking your hair counts in the shower using the hair catcher, like I mentioned before. It's not like this ridiculous, meticulous process like you think it might be. There is literally a way you can actually check, okay, how many hairs are miniaturized relative to the amount of hairs in the actual thing. Do I have telogen effluvium? Do I actually have androgenic alopecia based on the ratio of miniaturized hairs relative to actual high quality hairs? How many hairs are in the thing? And is this like a clinical, what would be like a rough, crude diagnosis of male pattern baldness or like androgenic alopecia progression? You can do that. I have an article on my website called like telogen effluvium versus male pattern baldness or something like that. And I kind of outline how, like, I guess in a clinical setting, they would evaluate that. And it's actually pretty easy to do. And you can kind of eyeball it really easily once you've done it a handful of times. So you can do that if you want to get ahead of it. If you have a perfect head of hair and you don't want to take drugs proactively, if you don't need to, and you want to wait for the first sign, then you can. But at the end of the day, the more like proactive you are about this shit, like the more ground you will keep. So it's, you know, ultimately it's up to you what you do. But if I could go back in time, I would have been proactive, because you don't actually visually see any changes until you've lost, you know, 20, 30,000 hairs off your head. And at that point, you're sort of in the position that the first twin was in. Even if you're very meticulous about looking, the first twin admittedly still has some signs, and he could have prevented those entirely if he just started from the get-go. So, but he still maintained most because he got it like right off the bat, right when he saw it, versus the second twin waited many years, let himself get aggressive loss, and then tried to play catch up, which is the worst thing you could do. The thing that's most notable about that too is your drug protocol is probably going to be more aggressive the longer you wait. So if you care about it at all, you could almost justify that it's perhaps, I'm not going to say it is, but perhaps it might be safer to be proactive because you could use a less intense protocol, maybe even not have to reduce, like they use Dutasteride, which is fucking intense. Maybe you only need to use finasteride. Maybe you don't need to use fucking topical anti-androgens. Maybe you don't need to use anything, this shit. Like this guy, you know, maintaining ground for like over a decade or whatever, like 15 years or whatever this is. Like they started in 2004. I guess the most recent picture is 2016, so it's 12 years later. But, you know, like twin one hasn't had like any regression whatsoever, and he's not even dealing with scalp testosterone. Like if you have really aggressive loss, like you're probably gonna have to implement, if you really want a comprehensive protocol, then yeah, like you would implement CBO 301 or RU58841 or something. But this is a good example that if you get really ahead of it, you probably don't even need minoxidil. You don't need the microneedling. Maybe you just need to inhibit 5-AR. Maybe you don't need to dig into this other shit. You know what I mean? So, and maybe like one of the bigger takeaways that I sort of just like went on a tangent and totally forgot to mention is your protocol, how aggressive it is, like I was sort of touching on and it sort of got fucking sidetracked, is if you get it early enough, you might not need to get to the really aggressive, comprehensive kitchen sink approaches, because you just simply do not need to be that aggressive with trying to recover, because you don't need as much of a drug burden to gain back ground as you do to prevent it from getting there in the first place. You know, obviously there's argument that like, you know, it depends on how much DHT would be necessary to cause hair loss in you individually. Like for some people, finasteride isn't sufficient. For a lot of people, it may be totally sufficient though if you catch it early enough. So, and it likely is the case that you could probably stave it off for a long time if you caught it early enough, just using like very, very, you know, newbie introductory options, like not even the big three, maybe just the big two, you know, ketoconazole, some finasteride, CB, you know, if you needed it on top of that, that's like pretty fucking well tolerated, pretty low side effect profile, at least for the majority of people. And you can maintain pretty much everything you have without ever having to look at, you know, microneedling your head until it's fucking bleeding, or oral castor oil, or like growth hormone secretagogues, or fucking, you know, aggressive anti-androgens, or things of this nature. So, yeah, you know, very interesting thing that I got sent today, and I wanted to bring up to you guys, because it is another just obvious example of, like, one of the best examples actually that I probably put on my channel to date. Like, two twins, identical fucking genetics essentially, self-reportedly exact same lifestyles. One uses the drug, one doesn't use the drug. One keeps his hair, one doesn't. One waits and ends up taking the drug later, can't recover to the same baseline as the first twin because he waited too long. And that's sort of the moral of the story. Just be like aware of what's going on, and keep an eye on your shit, because you might otherwise be able to get away with using much less than you otherwise might use down the line, and be more prone to side effects down the line because you're using a more aggressive treatment option to get the results you could have got with much less drugs earlier on, if that makes any sense. So take from that what you will. If you want to check it out yourself, the website is twinshairloss.com. So check it out and you can see for yourself, and let me know what you think. Comments down below. Do you I don't know, do you have a twin? Did one of you guys use drugs and the other one didn't? What happened? I don't know. I don't even, what are the chances somebody in the comment section has the same experience that they could contribute? I don't know. That'd be interesting to see though. And all the comments help the algorithm, regardless of how potentially irrelevant they are. You know, comment whatever the fuck you want, and let's see what, you know, the algorithm gods hopefully are in our favor in this one, because this is a very good topic that I hope gets spread around to the community, because I think a lot of people would benefit from seeing this one. So thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.moredates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates_moredates. If you want to get my deep dives into hair loss pharmacology, you can sign up to the newsletter. It is the first link in the description below. My written articles are much more elaborate than my videos and go into the clinical literature, have hyperlinks to all the clinical studies I reference, and are broken down into concise subsections with a table of contents, and they're just much better than my videos in my opinion. So a lot of incentive to sign up for those, because you will not get sent those articles unless you sign up to that. And if you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My recommended fast drying minoxidil, if you're going to end up using it, I would go with the non-greasy option that does not make your hair look like shit. A ketoconazole shampoo that I recommend, a very obvious introductory option for hair loss for newbies. Pharma grade hair loss treatments are going to be linked down there from where I, you know, go via for telemedicine to get my hair loss stuff. And then anything else I'm associated with, and Gorilla Mind, Gorilla Mode nootropics, and pre-workout formulas I designed for myself from scratch. And anything else I'm associated with, it's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.